It's 10:30, so good morning all. And how many have we got? 43 at the moment on the Zoom meeting, and including me and an unknown number watching on the streams. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the very first, and I hope the last, online Wakefield show. I say the last because I'm hoping very much that next year, a year from today, we'll be able to have a proper show, a physical one, where you actually get to talk to people face to face without fear of infection. So 23rd of April, 2022, that's the date we're looking at. So first guest up this morning is, I believe, Tony Bartram from AMCOG. Are you there, Tony?
I am here. Can you hear me all right?
I can. Just a quick word, by the way, that I'm sure most of you know, somebody's clacking on a keyboard. I don't know who it is, but if you wouldn't mind muting yourself.
Can we have everybody muted unless they're actually talking?
Yes, that would be a good idea. Perhaps Ruth can do that. As long as I don't mute myself. Yeah, those of you using Zoom under Windows, when it comes to the Q&A session, you can unmute yourself temporarily by pressing the space bar, apparently, which is quite good because it could save you embarrassment later when you forget to mute yourself and you're heard swearing at your partner or the kids or the grandkids or the dog, or eating or drinking noisily or anything like that. I don't know if that also works on the Linux and Mac OS versions, but maybe it does. So, Tony, I've got my very expensive kitchen timer here.
Yeah, I've got a timer as well.
5 minutes before the end, which you're due for an hour session. That's just to give you've got a few minutes to wind up so that we can start the next talk on time. That's okay?
That's good. All right.
So, right, Tony, I'll hand over to you, and yeah, off we go.
Right, I'll share my screen. I'm going to click share sound, which is quite important, just to remind other people as well. So hopefully you can see my screen. Please tell me if you can't or you can't hear me.
Yes, your screen is sharing, yeah.
Fantastic. So my name is Tony Bartram, and I've been using RISC OS for, oh gosh, ages, 7 years nearly. I'm releasing games over 6 years. And today I'm going to do a couple of things a bit differently, and hopefully that'll work. So I'm in the store as of now. There is a new title from AMCOG, and it's also has a discount on it for just the duration of the show. So I'm going to talk about that. I've also got a new set of updates to the development kit, which are being released later this week. Didn't quite manage to get it done in time for today. So I've been sort of testing the game a lot, which is quite good fun, actually. And then I've got some updates to our virtual sound chip, our improvement to the RISC OS sound system. Now, I've always wanted to demonstrate all the games I've done, but this would take ages. And as just previously mentioned by Rick there, it's not practical in terms of the time we have, which has been carefully limited, and I'm tracking it as well. But I have a solution to that. I'll show you what it is in a minute. The new title is called Spy Mission, The Ice Caves of Dr. Atom. So you're a spy, gone to Antarctica, and you have unfortunately been captured and have to escape in a nuclear-powered car, fighting past robots, etc. Which is all good fun. This is a bit like a sideways scrolling space game with a car. I was inspired to do this because of Vince Hudd's talk at the London show, as I originally did something similar when I was about 12, but it was a little bit more simple. I've never released it because it's not particularly brilliant. Might do so if I ever make some improvements to it. Because I've done quite a lot of games. I think apparently this would be about the 17th or something in total for RISC OS. I got a bit fed up with doing maps and tiles and doing things in the same way. So I thought it would save me a lot of effort if I got the computer to do it for me. It's generally a good rule of thumb. I was wrong because it was a new game engine, effectively, or an addition to the existing kit and a new way of writing something, which didn't initially work. And I had to spend quite a bit of time making it work acceptably. But that was good fun and interesting. So a bit of maths in front there generates the cave. It has a random number generator in it and a couple of counters that run against each other, creating interesting effects. So I quite enjoy that sort of thing. I might one day plug it into my sound chip and discover what it actually sounds like. It might sound interesting. This game, also like games of years ago, employs scrolling. So I'm drawing from the right and scrolling to the left, which creates a modifiable background. You get holes in the walls and you can damage it, spill oil and so on, which you can't do if I'm just trying to calculate and drawing a map. I've got game objects over the top. I have multiple weapons. I also, in the same spirit, and this was suggested in the beta that was run recently, so you could see some visible damage, say on the master boss robot at the end. So that was fun to modify the graphics in that way. So it doesn't all look like this. This is what the procedurally generated caves look like. You've got a couple of robots, an unusual looking car, which has no reverse gear, incidentally, and some ammunition to collect. I have programs in the game in order to provide some structure and some variation, so that it's not just a simple type of game, such as Infinite Bunner was demonstrating this recently. It's not all procedurally generated. There is some structure in there and some variation. I think that's quite important, really, if it's going to be a commercial game. So in this game, I had a different strategy. Rather than having a certain number of lives or shield energy, you have a nuclear reactor that takes a certain amount of time to cool down. And that means you sort of don't run out or have to worry about collecting energy to protect yourself. And it changes the dynamics of the game. You get warnings, smoke coming out and things of the car, flashing lights and sirens to warn you to let it cool down. Different weapons have different advantages. You can fire lasers and melt the ice going right. You can fire shells and make bigger holes. And so it's, for the synthesizer aficionados, I use something called pulse wave modulation to make a nice buzzing sound for the laser, which is a bit different. So just to say, it's nice to support something new on RISC OS, and it also gets children playing it, which I've done. And also understanding how software works. That originally got me into computer software, pulling apart computer games and making them work. And I've got some very simple ones that children have had to go at modifying. So that's quite important from an educational standpoint. It's not very expensive. They have original music. They run with dedicated use of the CPU. The sound effects are real-time synthesized. They're not the same every time. And that's a bit novel as well. Some cool things you can do on RISC OS you can't do anywhere else very easily. So yes, later this week, I'm releasing a development kit update. I want to make RDSP easier to use and understand. So in RDSP itself, which is also in the game kit, I'm putting some helper routines where you can say, I want to make a particular kind of sound and describe a few parameters on it. Say I want it to be loud or slow or whatever it is, or bright. And it will go and set up the parameters for you in a procedure. There are new graphics. My daughter's contributed some, new sound effects, a new example, which I'm adding in. So it's something, a Space Invader type of thing. And obviously more description of how to use it so people can understand what's possible. Quick word about RDSP. So it's sort of the fantasy sound chip I would like to have had on my computers years ago. It has 16 channels rather than 3 or 4. It has a synthesizer in it, so like the kind of musical instrument synthesizers you get. And you had a little bit in the Commodore 64. You can change the pitch of the samples if you want to use samples rather than it generating waveforms. And so that's a bit like you had on the Amiga. And if you had in RISC OS, I think the built-in sounds, there was discussion recently about them being limited, but you could just use this instead if you wanted to quite easily, and it would work as an in-place replacement for having a slightly better suite of sounds. And it's possible to load all the sounds you'd need for a, say, general MIDI. I'm looking at adding that in a convenient way, but I may not have it when I release this later in May, but I might do. Depends how much work is involved. You can also record the sounds as it makes and take them off RISC OS if you want to. It's different to a standard sort of instrument you get on your professional workstations, what they call VSTs, which is a virtual synthesizer, I think, because it has things like the BBC Micro did, modulatable noise, a kind of envelope that will step in big jumps over intervals, which you don't get on a synthesizer. They just don't work that way. So that means you can do different things that you maybe can't do anywhere else. So I'm releasing that later in May. I'm putting some new effects algorithms into it. I've got a tracker, which I'm sort of finishing off. This is basically a simple way of playing music using RDSP. As I mentioned, it is basically a musical instrument. So that'd be kind of a cool thing to have on RISC OS, and I'd like to have a nice desktop UI in due course. It running in the shared sound interrupt means that you won't get latency when you drag the window about. So there's benefit in that. So an opportunity to be creative on RISC OS and do something different you can't do elsewhere. And mentioned and requested before, and been a long time coming from my last talk at ROC, a key up implementation, which will help MIDI when you want to play it from a keyboard. That's new examples and manual updates. So I'm going to do a video demonstration in a minute. So I'm talking over slides I wrote earlier. So it occurred to me I can talk over a video of me playing it. That way I'll demonstrate what I want to rather than getting confused, pressing the wrong button, or other things that go wrong. It is in the Pling Store right now and on the website. Now, these are all the things I've written apart from that. And keeping to time, this takes about 30 minutes to go through. So I hope no one minds that. I've cut it and so that each one's not too long. I can talk and explain over the top, which I'm going to. So first of all, I'll go to the demonstration of Spy Game. Now, what I've done is I have put the volume lowish because this one's a little loud. If it's too loud, Rick, or anyone, please just let me know and I'll turn it down if you can't hear me properly. It came up on the technical test. So I press play. And to all intents and purposes, I could be running this on RPCMU. I should mention this is the first game I've written on the Raspberry Pi for a while, Raspberry Pi 3, and I did it on RISC OS Direct. So I've now got about a minute before it starts playing, so I can explain some things if I keep it to time. So you can define your own controls. You can use a joystick. I will eventually backport that to other games as well. And you've got kind of a background here which illustrates where the game is set. And I have a summary of the story there. Just to remind you, it's you're escaping from Dr. Atom. Who captures you. There's more of a story on the website. Key thing to remember is the reactor pressure is something you need to keep an eye on. You can also see how far you've got through the game toward the end, and you can enter a level code where it says cave rather than level for a change to go to a level and carry on playing from it, and it displays the last code in the current session. So we're going to start now. Let me know if it's too loud. I've got original music, and this is guitar line. Yeah, I'm destroying the walls and the robots. First level's quite simple. What's going to happen in a minute is I'm going to die. But I'm being very careless here. Passing forward, not really worrying about anything much. My reactor's flashing yellow. In a minute, it's going to start smoking, and almost immediately, I think, I didn't pay attention to the game, so that's a bit unfortunate. So I'm going to play another level now. Once I remember what the code was, I had to think about it. It was quite late at night. Here we go. There's a few different things on here. Right. We've got another music track. There were 4 in the game. Together. This one starts off fairly similar. There's a shell there, catching a laser. Laser over this bridge. And then you've got a wall of ice to get through. I think this game was originally inspired by Scuba Hunter, about 10. For it, but it's not the same in any sense. Now I'm remembering here to let my reactor cool down. And so these hiding there to get a bit lower. Yeah, I'm nearly halfway through the level. Decided I want to use a different weapon. I'm fed up with don't stop. We have this nice buzzing sound from the laser energy there. These power up quite easy. Right, getting a bit critical. And the bombs, they probably can't see it on the screen, but they are sparkling. Reanimate cartoon style. There are variations. And I'll show a little bit more at the end. It's timed at about 7 minutes. Be a bit critical here. Let it calm down. There we go. So it's a different kind of way of not dying compared to, I think, most video games. And that took a while to get that calibration.
Your game sound is a teeny bit on the high side, Tony.
I can turn it down. I've got
only a teeny bit.
Oh, this is the loudest one. Go back there. You can see. Unfortunately, I died. It killed me. What we'll do is I'll go back a tiny bit because this is a wonderful thing I can go back in time, which I can't normally do. Just so you can see, there's actually a bit of damage occurring on the master robot at that point. Now, if I get myself on the mixer, which I don't seem to be able to do because I'm demonstrating, this is why I know that the demonstration devil will bite. Anyway, the next game's quieter, so we should be okay. We'll carry on briefly since you missed that bit. I'll just show a little more, and I think the other games are a little quieter. Otherwise, we'll make it work in a minute. Right, I don't play this throughout. These are like cartoon-style mines, which you can't destroy. But if you hit them, they cause quite a bit of damage. See, that's gone quite high. That can destroy you instantly, potentially. As well. Right. Well, I think, yeah, you know, you can kind of see what's going on. The last thing I demonstrated on here was I demonstrate the oil here, radioactive oil. Makes you scared forward. Of course, you probably crash kill you. Concrete blocks here. I managed to do it. But I think in order to run for time, because you've kind of seen what that's about now, we can go on to all the other ones. And that way, this will help. This will make Rick happy that we won't overrun. So I just need to get it to go to the video folder, which I can do by making it behave itself. I presume this is because I'm in Zoom. I presume that's why it doesn't want to actually select things that I go to. So we will solve this in the following way. I'll double click that. Right, I'm going to stop sharing temporarily and reshare in a second, because evidently this is a feature of sharing if you can't get to your desktop. It's funny, isn't it? The irony of it, you're trying to avoid a problem by running videos. Aha, this works. Right. I will make this work because I'm stubborn. Right. Okay. I think we'll get this to work with a bit of persistence. Hooray, good. So all I have to do is pause that, get back to Zoom. Doesn't matter what you do, you still get the demo double biting. All right, share my screen. Again, sharing with sound. And with the fair winds, we're going to be able to see this. Hopefully you can see this. Right, what we've got here is the very first game that I released, which is a tube shooter. So I've decided to play it in French. I should mention, you can play this game in French or German. And pretty very kind people said they would translate it for me. So I decided it's too hard to play it with mouse last night, so I decided to play it with the keyboard. We have about sort of 7 or 8 music tracks. And you go and have to destroy the overlords, basically. It's like Space Invaders, but in a combination of 3D. I think my graphics have got quite a bit better in the last 5 or 6 years. I found new ways of doing it. The hardest bit for me was coming from 8-bit platforms. That there is a wormhole, which you can go through. You go to avoid this force wall here. And I skipped forward a bit, otherwise you have to wait quite a long time for you to reach this point, which might get you a bit better. And I think I skipped forward again so you can see us reaching the boss in this. In some ways, Spy Mission has some similarities with this game, but probably a bit better, and I died. One of the best bits of this game, I was told, was the end music when you died. It's massive. But yeah, it's not perhaps one of my best ones, but it's now available in this US Direct. People said at the time they really liked it, but I felt I could do a bit better. So after this, I wrote something called Legends of Magic, which is basically a puzzle game. It has 2 quests within it, a 70,000-word novel, and is the only game I've released so far with a proper editor in it. So you can alternate between the quests. It has some hints and information here. Not strictly isometric because I didn't get the ratios quite right, but there are games like this. So one of the children, my customers at 9 years old, suggested you could have a bag in this game that you could collect the objects. You could have more than 3. And I incorporated that into this quest in an update. So you can collect the treasure. The idea is you have to collect all 120. You can drink some health potion here. You can fight some monsters. You can solve puzzles. The puzzles tend to be very much the same sort of thing you'd have in Castle Quest or Citadel years ago, except that you're looking down. Another thing about the game I could have done a better job of was the walk animation. Again, I found better solutions for that, including rotoscoping, where you draw over an actual subject, trace it, and then do it. But yeah, it still works. It's just it looks a little bit robotic, I think, one reviewer said. But the game's fun. A lot of people really enjoy this. I had my first show, I did this, one child was playing it for 3 hours. I didn't finish it, but they really enjoyed it. So that was great. So you can examine things as well. Here, you have certain kind of text interactions that show up on the scroll. And there's sort of monster type things there, which don't like you very much. You can fight them. Sword's better than what I've got. I only have an axe for chopping down trees. So if you use the axe as a weapon, then what happens is eventually it breaks. As you can see, bits are falling off of it until eventually it's just broken. Now, I didn't make those. I don't know if you can hear the sound effects, but there's some and things like that. That was made by someone in Germany. I got it off of a public domain archive. I didn't fancy doing that at the time. That's a teleporter styled after the Repton teleporter. This is a bust of Cleopatra, but in the game it's a guardian, which gives you gifts, advice, and helps you. Apparently a benign entity. Got a magic wand here, which I've collected. Go into the teleporter, and you can collect this little jewel there. That's an undead monk wandering over there. I styled it a little bit after the monks in Citadel, but it as a 3-dimensional one. Well, you're looking at it down at an angle, so you see more than one side, rather than just a sideways view. I've got an X, and I can go back, and I'm going to give this little jewel, just showing you one of the puzzles here, so quite a lot, to the Guardian. And I get a key back. I have some suitably cheesy writing there. Beware, the monks are undead. There we are. There's only so much you can do in a little bit of text. It's my excuse. So have you got a rather unfriendly monk? Doesn't want me to come in. Just zaps you with a bit of electricity. But you can stun him, at least for a moment. And then you can head up to the door. I should mention this is the first. I didn't have RDSP finished at this time, so I was playing samples back with Tim Player, which is possible to do if you can create tracker files. And I had a program to do that. But I couldn't play many samples at once. It was a bit limited for that. Open the door, keys of no further use. And we have a scroll here, which you can use. That sort of illustrates the kind of puzzles you get in this game. Right, here we go. So I should point out, and hopefully this will run into it, you've got, okay. Quite it's out of order. Sorry, this is a drag and drop game, which I wrote. It's a very simple type in listing. It's very simple, again, very easy for children to understand. Show how simple it was to write something like this. It's not very good. Maybe best forgotten, I don't know. It's good for teaching children how to code something in about 10 lines. I have a sneaking suspicion something's out of sequence in this video. So we might see the editor in Legends of Magic. We might not. I might have forgotten to include that clip. I did. Anyway, after the next game I released was Zeroid, after asking questions on the forums. This is basically like Fervor, but with some improvements. So in other words, a sort of road game, you have to stay on different parts of the road, have different effects. It's done with Plot 85, the triangle command in BASIC, all of it, and matrix transforms in BASIC. Green makes you go faster. Gray is a bonus color. Red stops you. Blue, you can't stop on it. You try, it won't work. Basically supposed to be ice. This makes the screen skid, unpleasant. This purple color makes you hover. The first level is more of an introduction to the different types of floors. Nice and easy. We'll just do a few levels here to show the types of thing you have in the game. There are 14 levels in total. The way the levels are written is they are broken go up and down as well. So it's not flat. Hard was slowing me down there. The way the game's written, you've got a path for the road to follow and a texture described separately. It makes designing the levels quite difficult, but which is why there's only 14. There's probably a better way of doing that, but it worked at the time. On to level 3 now, getting a bit harder. Up there, and I fell off on the bit that stops you and got sucked into a black hole apparently. I remember from the story. So try again. Up over, can't move on the red bit. I should mention this piece of music was composed on a £6 keyboard that I bought at a car boot sale. It sounds quite good. It's actually the same sound chip as a Sound Blaster card. So it's alright. But it didn't cost very much money at all. I think I got a bit of a bargain there. Very quick look at level 4. And it's a bit more up and down. It's quite visually attractive, nothing else. It looked quite good as a demo maybe. But it's quite good fun to play this actually. And again, RDSP wasn't ready, so this one didn't have any sound effects. I decided I just leave that for the time being. Maybe it worked well with this music. Multiple lanes. I think whilst I decided to play. That reach the end of the moment, hopefully. Make it look easy, but it isn't as easy as it looks. Everything's practice. I do a lot of testing because that's really important. So on to the next title now. Next game I released was Mop Tops, which is my Lemmings style game. So basically Lemmings, but with tools, I should mention. I called it Mop Tops because my boss used to call me. That's one of the passwords. No, I don't know if anyone's ever found that. It's the worst password I ever came up with. My boss used to call me a mop top because of my floppy hair, apparently. Making fun of me gently. So you use these fans to blow these little characters across. They have drills and ladders and other things to use. This level just uses fans. Quite simple. Those plants at the bottom there kill the mop tops, apparently eat them. Yeah, it's all a little bit surreal, I suppose, but it's fun. If you like puzzles, there are 30 levels to solve. And I have some people have come up to me and said they have completed all the levels. Other people haven't quite managed to get to the end, which is fine. Always there for the future. And speed the game up so you don't have to wait in an inordinate length of time for these little yellow things to get to the exit. This is the first game with RDSP in it. That's one of the first RDSP sounds. So this one is a little bit lateral. You've been given dynamite in this instance. If you give one to them, you hear my daughter speak, and the mop top will blow up. That gives you a bit more room to drag these things about. So it's a bit like a sliding puzzle, this one. You just create some space for the mop tops to leave. I've got a ladder stuck on the left, which you have to pay attention to look around, I suppose. Maybe a bit cruel to put it over there. And you can put a ladder in, and then the mop tops can climb up out and exit the level. There are more mop tops, I think, there than there. They're all kind of on top of each other, which actually makes it easier to solve the level. I just need one more bit of ladder. Now you only have to save one mop top, but if the other ones haven't died, then you lose. You basically have to get them all off the screen to win and save at least one. That was simpler than doing these percentage things that you have in Lemmings. I just thought I'd keep it really simple. I wouldn't try to do that type of thing. And then just very briefly a bit on this level. I don't play it to the end in order to keep to time. But this one you can drag bits of background on to finish off the map. When they're in place, you can't move them. For the other objects, you generally can. For one special kind of object, you can't move things. It's like this gold-looking thing that we saw briefly. So yeah, in 2017, moving on to 2017 quickly to keep the time, the AMCOG development kit was released. The very first game I wrote with it was this Pengo Clone, which was based on some graphics I did in the Amiga years ago and upscaled to make them usable. And it's just slide box kill things. This is my most popular title, having had hundreds and hundreds of downloads. This is free, basically, which is why it's quite fun. Works reasonably well. If you buy the game kit, you get the source code to it. The free one is crunched. Just because it felt it was probably appropriate to put some value on the game kit. So yeah, that's that way it follows, that form. Quite a simple game. That's how you die. RDSP sound there. And then moving on. The next game that I did, assuming it's still in order, is Cyborg. Yeah, I copied the Mutant Penguin game and edited it, basically. I made this in about a day or two. This is my version of Cybertron Mission, which is one of my favourite games for BBC Micro. Consequently, this is one of my favourite games as well. I really enjoy playing it, quite therapeutic. You're listening to a classic Roland Juno 6 playing in the background, by the way. I guess some of these graphics came from the Amiga or unfinished game on that one. The RISC Plus ones are better, though, than what I did on the Amiga. So much like in Cybertron. Oh, this was an easy level, I thought, to demonstrate, but no, it's somewhat full of robots and a bit challenging. Go for something you can't do. Show failure. So this thing actually will blow everything up if you get on it, but I died instead. A bit early. The blue thing down there is a teleporter, a bit like the safe in Cybertron Mission. So if I get on this thing this time, everything blows up on the screen. It's a bit like a power-up, but you have to use it in place. That big red button down there stops all the robots on the screen. Again, you've got some RDSP sound effects running in the background. Yeah, this is good fun. I think there's about 10 levels, or there's an infinite number of levels, technically. There are a number of maps, and it gets progressively harder up to about a certain level. I think 10 is where certain things max out. If you look carefully, you'll see I borrowed some graphics from Legends of Magic and Treasure. This design, again, I've had very little time to do it, so it seems easiest to reuse what I had. And the background edge here with the yellow stripes, yellow and black stripes, was supplied to me on Facebook by someone very kindly as an improvement. I think I just show a tiny bit of this level. Don't think I show too much of it. Just to illustrate that the maps are different. You've got multiple different tracks playing in the background. Yeah. Move on quickly to the next title in a minute, I think. So that's faded out. So the next one, in the game kit, I have a demonstration game which is extremely simple called Sparky, sort of a reverse Pac-Man. What you have here is you have the ghost following you. You're dropping lights to banish them. It's very loosely inspired by a Commodore Plus/4 game called The Exorcist. You light up the maze in that game. You don't actually drop lights. And this is a tiny amount of code and uses lots of common code with using Penguin and Cyborg as well. So again, it didn't take very long to write, and it can be modified by children. And I think at least one game was made by one of my customers from this. I think it was Vicky Booking, if I remember rightly. Was it adapted from this as a starting point? It illustrates how to write the games and how to use the kits. You've got a small amount of code, not that one. If we go into the project, the levels are just text, by the way. So they're really easy to edit in a text editor. But the code is tiny. I think just coming on screen now at the bottom there is a game loop starting at repeat. It's mostly comment, and it finishes just about there with the until. It's absolutely tiny. And so everything's abstracted away, making it really easy to make things of this type. Not having to worry about API calls. I've explained a bit of how the sounds work there as well. So moving on to the next title I did. I was working on a game in the background, which was really proving very difficult to finish. That was a 3D first-person shooter, which we'll see in a while. So I did this one a few days before the show because I hadn't got the other one anywhere near ready. It was suggested by a designer group. And it's basically a lot like Defender. It's not identical to Defender, but it's a lot like it. And you can't, for example, pick up the life forms. You've got some additional spaceships to shoot. We've got music, which Defender didn't have. I play a bit of this. I'm pretty sure I bridge it, so we don't have to watch me shooting. Again, making it look easy, but not quite as easy as it may have been. This is my brother's favourite game that I've done. Good fun. Graphics are definitely relatively basic in this. Now when I'm fading out, that's when I'm changing it somewhere. I skip forward a bit. I think I'm demonstrating here what happens if you kill all the life forms, I think. Because like with the Defender, I let the planet basically blow up. Yeah. I'm shooting all the life forms now. Well, there we go. So we can see what happens when they've all gone. That's fun. Dying in the process. One life form left, and die relatively quickly. So that's good fun. Play it like that as well. So, and this is the only game I have at present with a high score, just because of lack of time. I probably will change that at some point and incorporate it in other titles. Now, this is 2018 at this point, and after about a year and goodness knows how long, I've managed to finish this first-person shooter, which definitely is not an easy thing. Well, it wasn't easy for me to write. So you can play it in 2 modes. It has some levels from Vince Hud, which are quite challenging. It's permanently nighttime, and you have to wander around and collect ammunition, try and get your plane flying again, hoping that the world hasn't succumbed to zombies, which unfortunately it has. Way too much plot. And you've got, because of presumably, I think an experiment that went wrong, which is a cliche, isn't it? So you've got a moonwalking zombie, green thing. And this was, I do a lot of the music in the games. The Spy Mission, I've done all of it. But this one has some music started by a friend from university who records with me, Sim, who has created this track a while ago. And it really fitted well with this game. My daughter's suggestion was to make the zombies crumble to dust in the ground. It's all very child-friendly in that way. Zombie games go, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that I decided to show you what happens when you die in a minute. Because that's quite fun. So I'm going to die in a minute. Pretty sure, yeah, he kills me. It doesn't make it very convincing, but he does actually kill me. My health is going down, as you can see on the top there. You've got a radar show you where you are. And unfortunately, as you should, of course, in a zombie game, you turn into a zombie at the end. Do it forever to walk the island. Green, apparently. So that's good fun, actually. First time I tried to write anything like that. Now, I contributed to Drag and Drop, as we saw earlier. I contributed to a game called Boing. Chris Dewhurst finished off the levels and added some sound effects. This game has music being generated by RDSP, and the graphics are demonstrating an article that I wrote in a magazine called about upscaling. So the whole game is 14 kilobytes in size, including the graphics, and the graphics are like on HDTV, they're upscaled. They're made bigger than they are actually in the code. It fills in detail and smooths them out, but it's not there. It's a relatively simple algorithm and not completely standard, but it illustrates the basic premise of upscaling. The game itself is fairly straightforward, but it's quite fun. I think I show on here the upscaling comparing against the code. So you can see it's a sort of nice fuzzy sort of fuzziness to that image. That's been calculated. It's not been done elsewhere. As I sent it, not how it appeared in the magazine, because you can see it easier in my original example. You've got the character graphics here. And there's not as much detail in the code as there is in the game. It's been calculated. You can sort of see it on the cherries that I'm fuzzing out the image, which is quite a fun thing to do, illustrating how you can bring back older games which don't fit the modern resolutions. You can calculate color and calculate detail that there isn't room for. This is Stunt Drivers. It's a racing game. Let's move across the genres. So we are now at the end of 2018. So I think we're going to be okay for time. You can choose a car and you can race it. When you choose, it gets a bit bigger here. You get a nice sort of RDSP type sound. Now this is a bit loud musically. So I won't talk too much. Basically what you have to do is jump over the obstacles and race against the cars. I didn't do very well because I thought it was more useful to show you're not playing it perfectly. That's my excuse. All very deliberate, of course. So jump over the ramps in your what looks like it's probably a Trans Am, not strictly. And yeah, they're cutting corners there. That seems a bit unfair, really, but there we are. I can do that as well, not as well as they can. So go for another go. Losing quite badly. Try and catch this one up. I passed her on the straights and they are, so you have an advantage. They played perfectly. I caught an oil there. Unfortunately, spun out, and that means I blew up, got hit by a car. There we are. That's what that game's about. That's quite good fun. After that, I wrote Escape from the Arcade in 2019, the 4th anniversary of AMCOG Express. So it's a bit of a joke. Don't play this video game, or you get sucked into it. This provides a kind of narrative plot device that enables me to do some video game style graphics and have unrealistic jump motion and things like that. You can far too aesthetic. I do graphics for the first time here. Little ghost there and the little girl. You have these giant cherries which can replenish your health. You can go around. This is a lot like Castle Quest or Citadel. Very child friendly. I think the youngest person I know who's played this is probably 3 or 4. It's a lot easier than Castle Quest to control. You don't need a lot of precision to do it. Some of the puzzles need a little thought. I think I show a little clips of solving some aspects of the puzzles using the objects. And I try not to run too long. So there we go, jumping past the aliens. And then later on I've got a bomb, and I'll show you what you do with the bomb. It's covering her head, a bit heavy for her. You throw it, bowling ball, and it blows up the wall, and you can get through to the next bit. So you can throw objects around like you could in Castle Quest and have interactions. And you've got some nice spooky piano music, which I played. There's a key hidden up here. So in case anyone wonders where the green key is, it's over here. Who's got the ring? Don't mind me showing them. Worth having a bit of an explore. There you go. So I've got the green key, and as over time you lose health, you need to eat every so often to keep going. Unlike the earlier game, that doesn't happen. So there we go. Go down here. You can get what may look familiar. Yes, it's a scroll from Legends of Magic. I reused it because I like it. I do that very large, full screen, and then put text on it and reduce it down, because that looks a lot better than trying to draw something on it. So moving on, the next game was Star Mine, for which there is a PC Linux version. Improved graphics, and I hope to port that stuff back. These physical objects that are being photographed. It's inspired by a BBC micro game called Star Maze. This one has the most advanced graphics of all the titles, because these are photographs with digital enhancement. You can define your own keys. The first game I got that support, and also joystick support. That's because you need more controls to make this work. There you go, got a little skull here. That cost me about £3.50 originally in Portugal. And I just sort of coloured it in a bit. So I've done more than that for some of the graphics. I made it a plaster scene, air drying clay, foam board. This is a bit of rock from my garden, which I turned into an asteroid. The way this is done is it's tilted, the camera's tilted, if you like, so that I can rotate it on. And it basically looks like it's floating. Now so this is an earlier gameplay. That's a bit of shield energy. I don't remember what I did. Yes, that's the Blake 7-star spaceship, made out of bottles, basically stuck together with glue and painted white. But this works. I've always wanted to do that, so that was fun. I'm not quite sure where I cut this one. See how long we have left in the video. Not too long. Yeah, flying over a bit of spaceship there. Like a laser grid encapsulating you there. And, yeah, it's good fun. Just want to play a little bit more. The joystick apparently. I faded it out there. Right, so moving on. This a game I submitted to Drag and Drop magazine. It's basically about 8K in size, showing how to write a 3D game in a tiny amount of code. It should be called Attack of the Staples, really, because they look like staples, I think. Anyway, it's my homage to the Atari 2600 in terms of the sound. and that's the style. Makes me think of that, those old video games. Very basic, but yeah, it just shows you how to write it. People can put it apart and see how to do simple scaling and projection. And I made it pretty much as simple as I could. So not much code. It's sort of quite fun as far as it goes, but not a great deal to it, really. Quite simple. Probably one of the simplest games I've written. And, yeah, so that's that. And the last game I released before today's one, oh, I should point out the code here is really small. This is the whole code. See how many lines it is if I watch. 200. Do I scroll to the bottom? Can't remember. About 300 lines or so. Fairly straightforward in principle. And the next game I wrote, the last one prior to the one today, is Scuba Hunter. This is the last bit of the video here. It's basically Repton underwater. I did the graphics by rotoscoping. As I mentioned, that gives more realistic modes of motion. You can set your level there, and you can start it here. You can start in a diving bell. So I went over a diver training video that shows you how to swim and traced over a few frames, basically. And I did the same sort of thing with the shark. The shark is an actual shark I drew over. Make it look like a cartoon. These problems are based on the order in which you do things. Collect fuels, just like you do in don't know what like rocks fall on you. You die in this rather entertaining way. Yeah, you just have to do things in the right order if you don't get very far. There we are, really. So, you know, you can some exploding sharks over here. Catch some jewels there, and probably just mentioned exploding sharks. I don't know why I made it do that. I suppose I thought it was funny at the time. There we are. I think that's probably pretty much it. Nice, gentle, relaxing music. Appropriately game over. Now, I'm going to stop sharing at that point. And I hope you can hear that. There's various things in the chat over there. Here we go. I'll try and answer some questions, if that's okay. Did you manage to see it? I guess you managed to see it all right. Here we go. From the top then. Okay. Yes, I've had a haircut. Well spotted. Shocked my hairdresser. I haven't had my haircut for 4 months.
There was a query about rotating a sprite somewhere.
Yes,
was that the rotoscoping thing?
So the rotoscoping is where you take a picture, you do an overlay in your paint tool, and you draw around the outside in pencil. That's what they used to do at Disney to get a realistic motion of objects. And you can do that for walks and things, and you know, it makes it far easier to do, essentially. So the rotation is where you are just causing the RISC rotate routine. I've got a game kit function for that specifically.
I think the rest were just very complimentary about different aspects and how many you'd done and all that sort of stuff. I think you're one of the most prolific recent RISC-OS games developer.
That's very kind. It's good fun developing on RISC-OS. I find it easier to be creative at performance and not being distracted, as I mentioned before. And I have a coffee machine, which means I don't sleep.
No, ever.
Well, not probably as much as I should.
Yeah, I'll let anyone else pop in with any questions there.
Sure. That's very kind. Captain Caveman, yes, Vince Hunt is right. I was thinking of Captain Caveman when I did that. Was that a Borg cube? I suppose it could be, but not for copyright reasons. Attack of the Staples. Yeah, so that's that should hopefully turn up and drag and drop. It just depends on when it fits in the time. Not missing photorealistic rights and carbon graphics in one game. better if just one type or the other. Thanks. If there's any questions about, as I say, the game kit is available. I'll be updating that. All the source codes included with all the titles. Source codes included with RDSP, which is my own synthesizer there. People are free to take code and use it for what they like. But obviously, prefer not to clone things. It's the only thing I would ask. Are there any other questions? So, Rick, we're doing all right for time. It's 5 minutes.
Yeah, they've all gone very quiet.
I raised my hand, but I don't know if you saw it.
I'm sorry.
Well, no worries. Terje Sleppe from Norway. I just want to join in saying that I'm very happy that things are happening still on RISC OS. I have an ARM X6 computer, and I had Acorn stuff from the BBC time. I'm 54 now, and I love RISC OS, and I'm very happy that even games are being developed. So thanks a lot.
Welcome. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Just to quickly about the listings, you said you had a couple of things in a magazine. Can't remember which one you said.
Drag and Drop has got several, and hopefully the Monotron game would appear in there at some point soon. It's previously had the Boing game. I had some illustrated code to show how you did upscaling, basically, and I put it into that as an exercise.
And that's a purchasable PDF magazine, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Cool. But again, if anyone thinks of anything and wants to drop me a line over email, you can do that anytime. And I'll say
yeah. If something subsequently pops up on the chat, I believe we'll be capturing the chat anyway, so we can point things in your direction if need be. Well, an hour's flown by.
Yes.
Hasn't it?
It has indeed.
Well done.
Have you had a haircut recently, Tony?
I have indeed. I had a haircut.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you look a bit shorn compared to last time I saw you, haven't you?
Yeah, it's sort of mop top, literally, as per my boss's description.
Yes, it's not the pudding basin job then.
No, not this time.
Very good. Well, thanks very much.
You're welcome. Cool. Thanks for having me.
So,